والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Last time we stopped by verse number 51. واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا. Just a brief note on something that we mentioned last week. We were discussing whether we are taken to account for evil thoughts, as in evil thoughts that we don't really act upon. And we mentioned in the class that Islamically, according to the Quranic grammar, we are accountable for our thoughts, even if we don't act upon them. The Quran literally says, وَإِن تُبْدُوا مَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَوْ تُخْفُوهُ يُحَاسِبْكُم بِهِ اللَّهُ. Whether you reveal or you conceal, you'll be taken to account for it. So someone asked me, this is almost impossible. I mean, we will end up, that's us humans. We have bad thoughts, we have bad assumptions. I mean, yesterday's khutbah was on this concept, khutbah al-Jum'ah. So it's almost inevitable that we'll be doing this. What we need to realize, yes, it does happen, it will happen. The most important thing is to first of all to acknowledge. Acknowledge the problem, first of all. Because sometimes, the danger with not acknowledging that this is a problem is huge. The problem of evil thoughts, of having bad assumptions, even if you don't act upon them. That's a very serious thing. Because it is literally, you are your thoughts. You are your thoughts. Your actions follow your thoughts, actually. And in the khutbah yesterday, I mentioned that the verse of poetry by Al-Mutanabbi, the famous Arab poet, where he says, إذا ساء فعل المرء ساءت ظنونه. إذا ساء فعل المرء ساءت ظنونه. وصدق ما يعتاده من توهم. When you have evil thoughts, it means you will have evil actions. And if you have evil actions, that means you naturally have evil thoughts. Not only that with the passage of time, you start to believe your own whims. If I have evil thoughts about someone, because I haven't resisted those thoughts after a couple of months, a couple of years, in my mind, this person, this does not become an assumption, it becomes a reality. You think this person is evil. And it's just the way you think of it. Right? And then Mutanabbi says, إذا ساء فعل المرء ساءت ظنونه وصدق ما يعتاده من توهم وعاد محبيه بقول عداته. وعاد محبيه بقول عداته وأصبح في ليل من الشك مبهم. That you will end up, being an enemy of your own friends. Just because by following your bad thoughts. And you will end up with a huge mess of doubt. You will never have any sort of certainty in your life. So it's a very serious thing. So to acknowledge that this is a problem is what we are after. Number two, what do we do if we have those evil thoughts or bad opinions or whatever? You need to, the Quran speaks of something that we may it's more of a method of resistance. Where it says, idfa' billati hi ahsan. As in, drive away that evil thought by actually doing the opposite of what it demands. You know, if I have a bad assumption about Ahmed, مثلا, what do I do in this situation? Next time I see Ahmed, I actually speak very good to him. And behind his back, I do the same thing. With the passage of time, if I do this repeatedly, it will take away completely that bad assumption from my mind. If you don't do this, again, that assumption will move into a reality, to become a reality. So that's what the Quran calls ad-daf'a. Idfa' billati hi ahsanu sayyi'ata. You drive away the evil thought with something good. Then if you keep speaking in a good way about someone that you have bad assumptions about, you know, with the passage of time, you start to believe in this is a good person, actually. I mean, not just in front of them, but actually behind them. That's what is even more important. So, I wanted to emphasize this point because thoughts are big things. Our thoughts literally constitute who we are. Otherwise, actions can be doubted. As in, our actions, they can be showered with so many doubts. I mean, nifaq is a major sin in Islam. So I just wanted to emphasize this before we move to the next passage. Yes? Yeah, sure. Sure. You know, you are so lucky. You know, there is no silly question, but there are many silly answers. So I am the one who's in that position.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is there a difference between a thought and a feeling? So, for example, I get it. I see a beautiful car that I like. For example, I say, well, if only I had this car.
Mm-hmm.
But then a feeling would be like hating that this person had this car. Why is it not mine, for example? And what I'm thinking, this is where it turns bad. So just having the thought of the initial thought is. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Okay, I think you know. First of all, what is the difference between a thought and a feeling? To me, I don't think there's a difference.
So I believe I'm definitely accountable for the feeling.
Perfect.
Feeling bad for this bad feeling, yes, I'm accountable for it.
Perfect.
But am I accountable for just getting the thought? Maybe it just came.
Which thought?
Of having.
That thing.
Yeah, that thing.
No, that's. I mean, I can't see there's a problem with that. It's a problem when, you know, when you wish ill for the other person. You know, the Quran speaks of al-bukhl. What is al-bukhl? What is al-bukhl? Being stingy. And the Quran also speaks, you know, al-bukhl is someone who is stingy with what he has. And we have the problem of the disease of al-hasad, that is jealousy, right? But we also have ash-shuh. Can anyone guess what ash-shuh is? The Quran speaks of both. People often use those words synonymously. Al-bukhl equates ash-shuh, as in being stingy. Ash-shuh is a lot more deeper than al-bukhl. Ash-shuh is literally when you withhold what you have. So you don't want to share it with anyone. Right? So you become so attached to it, so selfish about it. Ash-shuh is becoming so selfish about what someone else has. In the sense that, you know, let's take this example. Surah Al-Hashr talks about the community of the Ansar. وَالَّذِينَ تَبَوَّأُوا الدَّارَ وَالْإِيمَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. The Quran speaks of the Ansar who received the Muhajirun in Medina. The Quran talks about them in a very positive way. This saying that the people who were firmly established in Medina before the immigrants came from Mecca, يُحِبُّونَ مَنْ هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ. They love the people who migrated to them. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا أُوتُوا. So they realize that those immigrants, they are very close to the Prophet ﷺ. They have been given, like think of Abu Bakr, think of Umar, think of those big names. They have a very specific place with the Prophet ﷺ. Right? And then when they come to Medina, the Prophet ﷺ establishes connections between them and the people of Medina. What naturally happens in this situation? A sense of jealousy. We're hosting you. We should be in a really, okay. If you read books of Surah, who occupies the most position? Is it the Muhajirun or the Ansar? The Muhajirun. You barely know how many Sahaba of the Muhajirun you can count. Maybe you can count 10, 20. Of the Ansar, you can barely count 5. Why? They are almost absent. Even though the Quran speaks very positively of them. One of the qualities about those people is that they didn't have this disease, الشح. وَلَا يَجِدُونَ فِي صُدُورِهِمْ حَاجَةً مِمَّا. They weren't jealous that those people had something they did not have. So now, وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Then the Quran says, وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. So شُحُّ النَّفْس is a lot more deeper than al-bukhl. Al-bukhl is being stingy with something that you have. Al-shuh is holding grudges. It's nothing to do with you. It's about someone else, and it's someone else's life, someone else's situation, which has nothing to do with you. But you still have those ill feelings. Why should he be happy? This is what you're talking about. A very dangerous one, which is a lot more dangerous than al-bukhl. And this, I don't know if this makes sense. This makes sense of a relation to what you're saying. It only becomes a problem when we move from. If one wishes for themselves to be wealthier or whatever for good reasons, so be it. There is nothing Islamically wrong about that. But to wish ill for someone else because of what they have, that's definitely problematic. Okay, 51. Yallah ya Ahmad. إنه the duplication on the noon إنه
كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن وقربناه نجيا
ووهبنا نعم
من رحمتنا أخاه هارون نبيا واذكر في الكتاب إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا.
What's the ruling here? We've had 4 rulings. That is idgham. Why is it idgham? نعم. التنوين full. Exactly. So what happens in this case? Idgham بغنة. What does it mean? The first letter, the tanween, gets completely assimilated to the next letter. So it becomes a noon. Rasulan Nabiyya. Now, do you want me to repeat those 4 rules that we've had? Are you fine with them?
Yes, please.
Okay, no problem. So, we have, how many Arabic letters do we have? 33. Well done. We have 33 letters? Do we have 30 letters in Arabic? How many? 10. Well done, yeah. Bilal? 28. That's true. That is a true number. 28. So, you have Noon Sakina and you have Tanween. And we have here 6 letters. Al-Hamza, Ha, Ayn, Ha, Ghain, Kha. And here we have Ya, Noon, Mim, Waw, Lam, Ra. And here we have Ba. And here we have the rest of the letters out of those 28. Whenever you have this Noon that has tanween, that has a sukoon on it, or you have this sign, the duplication, either with fath or kasr or dam, if they are followed by any of those letters, those 6 letters, the ruling is called idhar. Idhar means literally something that's very clear, clearly pronounced. You may translate it as pronouncement, it's very clear. So, min ard, for example, you pronounce the noon fully and the hamza fully. Right? Min khalaq, min khalaq. The noon is pronounced fully, the kha is pronounced fully. And then you have idgham. Idgham is what I'm talking about now, the assimilation thing. What happens, this noon or this tanween, they get completely merged, they get assimilated into those letters. Like this example, Rasulan Nabiyya. We need a clearer one. So what happens is that the noon goes away, it gets pronounced as if it's a ya, or a noon, or a mim, or a waw, or a lam, or a ra. We'll get to know these. With this, the third one is called iqlab. The noon or the tanween gets converted into a mim. Like min ba'd. Here is the noon followed by a ba. This noon gets converted into a mim, mim ba'd. With the rest of the letters, 14 letters, I guess, what happens? We said here, idhar, you fully pronounce the noon. Idgham, you fully cancel the noon, as in the noon gets completely merged into the next letter, those 6 letters. The last ruling is called ikhfa. Ikhfa is a place in the middle between idhar and idgham, where the noon is not fully pronounced, but it's not fully assimilated either. It's a place in between. And this is much of what we have. Literally. 14 letters where this happens. I find some examples as we recite. Yes, yeah, Kisa. It's just, you need to exercise and practice this as much as you can to a professional reciter. With the passage, the more you practice, the more you get it, inshallah. Just comes with practice. نعم يعني.
وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا.
فتح الله لك. هذا شو.
واذكر في الكتاب إدريس إنه كان صديقا نبيا ورفعناه
Well done. Inshallah, we shall pause here. أيها واذكر في الكتاب.
واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن وقربناه نجيا ووهبنا له من رحمتنا أخاه هارون نبيا واذكر في الكتاب إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا واذكر في الكتاب إدريس إنه كان صديقا نبيا ورفعناه مكانا عليا أولئك الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين من ذرية آدم وممن حملنا مع نوح ومن ذرية إبراهيم وإسرائيل وممن هدينا واجتبينا إذا تتلى عليهم آيات الرحمن خروا سجدا وبكيا.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to stop you. You've taken Hussein's role, okay? No, fine. Hussein, please.
It's pressure. Next time we need to sit somewhere else. The presentation's too good.
Yours is good, mashallah, as well.
واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن وقربناه نجيا ووهبنا له من رحمتنا أخاه هارون نبيا واذكر في الكتاب إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا
Well done, Hussein. Mashallah. Ahmad.
واذكر في الكتاب إدريس إنه كان صديقا نبيا ورفعناه مكانا عليا أولئك الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين من ذرية آدم وممن حملنا مع نوح ومن ذرية إبراهيم وإسرائيل وممن هدينا واجتبينا إذا تتلى عليهم آيات الرحمن خروا سجدا وبكيا.
Allah. Good. Would you like to read? No problem. Okay, sir.
واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان
مخلصا. It's a صاد. مخلصا. مخلصا.
مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن
وقربناه
نجيا ووهبنا له من رحمتنا أخاه هارون نبيا واذكر في الكتاب إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا.
You see, in the word عند, we said وكان عند ربه. The noon is followed by a dal. Which rule applies here? It's the fourth one, إخفاء. what happens with ikhfa? You haven't clearly pronounced the noon. You didn't say عند, but you haven't also completely assimilated it to the next letter by saying عند. It's somewhere in between. That is ikhfa. عند وكان عند ربه مرضيا. One second. No. No, you're right. You're right. I did it right. 1 second. I'll get it inshallah. But you've been away for a while, you know this. Tawsi. Okay. Sorry. إدريس. نبيا. أنعم الله. ذريتي. You see, ذريتي. You have to get the tip of your tongue out. Yes. وإسرائيل. وإسرائيل. It's not it's Israel. Just yes. Exactly. تتلى. الرحمن. Well done. You just need more practice. Very good. Taha. Am I right? Am I right? Taha? Okay, perfect. You know it into side? Okay, no problem. Sisters, side? أخاه هارون. We have the ha getting repeated 2 times, and the ha is a very light letter. It has to be pronounced with a very sharp and a very light way. أخاه هارون. نعم. Well done. You see this little wow that is in front of the ha in ahlahu? Can you see it? What does it mean? It's okay. It's called ha usila. Maybe inshallah it's an advanced bit of tajweed when we come to it later. But it means you have to somehow extend the ha a little. So it becomes وكان يأمر أهله بالصلاة والزكاة وكان عند ربه مرضيا. The same thing in ربه مرضيا. أهله أهله. Of course, it's not أهله with wow. The complete. Of course, and there are different types to it. There are times when it becomes almost a wow, but it's not in this particular case. But at least for now. We can't say وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ. It has to be extended a bit. وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ وَكَانَ عِندَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. Well done. Who's next? Well done. Other reciters? Well done, well done. On. Who else? Well done. Any other reciters? Well done. MashaAllah. Any other reciters? That's it? Okay. So the verses we're looking at today, just by way of giving some context before we reflect, begin with the story of Musa alayhi salam. واذكر في الكتاب موسى إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا. And the translator, he says, mention two in the Quran, and we opted for the word remember. If you remember, beginning of the surah, the impact of ideas, the impact of our thoughts on us. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in a very difficult situation, he needs to remember those role models that he can have a better psychological state. Remember, in the book could be a reference to the Quran, but could also be a reference to a book that we don't have access to, Lawh al-Mahfuz, مثلا, or in في علم الله مثلا. It does not necessarily have to be it could be the Quran, but it could also be something else. Remember in the book Moses, إنه كان مخلصا وكان رسولا نبيا. He was a specially chosen figure. He was a messenger and a prophet. Last week we discussed briefly the difference between a prophet and a messenger and that. وَنَادَيْنَاهُ مِنْ جَانِبِ الطُّورِ الْأَيْمَنِ وَقَرَّبْنَاهُ نَجِيًّا. And we called to him from the right hand side of the mountain, that is Jabal Sina in Egypt, and brought him close to us in secret communion. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ مِنْ رَحْمَتِنَا أَخَاهُ هَارُونَ نَبِيًّا. And out of our grace we granted him his brother Aaron as a prophet. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِسْمَاعِيلَ. And remember in the book as well the story of Ismail. He was true to his promise, a messenger and a prophet. وَكَانَ يَأْمُرُ أَهْلَهُ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَالزَّكَاةِ وَكَانَ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ مَرْضِيًّا. He would command his household, could also mean his community, to pray and give alms, and his Lord was well pleased with him. وَاذْكُرْ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِدْرِيسَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. Remember also in the book the story of Idris. Could also mean remember him, remember Idris, not only his story. He was a man of truth and a prophet. وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. We raised him high, in a high position, to a high position. These were the prophets that God blessed from the descendants of Adam, of those we carried in the ark of Noah, from the seed of Abraham and Israel, and those we guided and chose. When the revelations of the Lord of mercy were recited to them, they fell to their knees and wept. 2 minutes of silent reflection with the key question in mind. Think of something that you immediately reacted to, something puzzling to you, whatever you may have in mind. Share your emotions with us, or your ideas with us, so to speak. Anything that anyone wants to share?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay, no problem. Let's begin with comments and then we'll move to questions. No problem. Ahmad.
I think it's the fact that it's quite interesting, the fact that every prophet is given like sort of good attributes of them, and then sort of God's sort of saying his mercy towards them sort of thing. So, for example, say for Musa, he gives some good attributes, kind of awesome, and then it's like God then gave him his mercy in these sort of ways. وَهَبْنَا لَهُ
Hmm.
and then God, and then and God came up there, and then God made was well pleased with him, sort of thing. And same with the others. So something maybe is saying to the Prophet as well, like keep doing sort of good and keeping up with good traits and stuff like that, and God will give you from His mercy.
Absolutely. That's so obvious in this passage, indeed. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, I think when we gave the Friday khutbahs on this passage, I always emphasize that every prophet, there's some sort of a particular characteristic of his personality. We've seen with Ibrahim alayhi salam, what was the key concept with Ibrahim? Before he became a prophet, and they all share the prophethood, but there is something distinct that before the Quran characterizes them as prophets, the Quran gives us something unique about their characters. With Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Quran said, إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا. And we said that in Arabic, this is a form of intensity. Like the Quran means like he was excessively truthful. And so he was truthful and a believer in truth. And this form, we said the form of fi'il, one of the forms of intensity, siyaq al-mubalagha in Arabic. Inshallah. For those who do the Quranic Arabic course, inshallah, we'll look at those at some point soon. How do we exaggerate in Arabic? One of those forms is when something comes in the form of fa'il, siddiq, qiddis. Right? So siddiq, he is excessively, intensively truthful. Intensively truthful. If we say someone is sikit, what does it mean? Opposite what? No, it's not exaggeration. It's the same form. Sikit fa'il. What does it mean? Kathir al-sukut, indeed. He is intensively silent. He barely speaks. It comes from the verb sakata. Sakata. So if I want to emphasize that someone is always silent, does not speak much, it's called sikit. If I say someone is مثلا Bilal Sikir مثلا, what does that mean? Can you guess that, Bilal? You can't. No guesses?
We use it for the term stiff. Drink, use it.
Drink water. What do you mean?
It's kisker.
Well done. So it means Bilal is alcoholic. Yes, of course, I know it is not, alhamdulillah, but that's in the form of fa'il. Do you have any other examples? It's one of the unique forms. We don't have many words in this. We have the word qiddis. Intensively holy. Qiddis. Nahrir. Someone who is. What is Nahrir? Someone who's very meticulous. And if someone analyzes something very sharply, right? You have the word khirrit. The Prophet ﷺ, the hadith that discusses how when the Prophet ﷺ was migrating from Mecca to Medina, he was guided by, they had a guide to the journey who was not a Muslim, but they trusted much his guidance. And the narrator described him here, he says, وَكَانَ خِرِّيتًا. خِرِّيت وَالْمَاهِرُ فِي الطَّرِيقِ. He knows, the geography of the place, he knows the places, the ins and outs. Khirrit. Right? So that the key word with which the Quran begins with Ibrahim, when it comes to Ibrahim, is Siddiq. With Musa, the Quran says, Mukhlasan. So the key to Moses' character is al-ikhlas. sincerity, honesty. And the key to Ismail's character, he was true to his promises. And the same thing with Idris, again, the idea of Siddiq. And you may read something into this. Okay, when you look at Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ibrahim's journey, Ibrahim had a journey of faith. His journey is, Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of our key, he is the primary role model. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his entire mission is seen as a revocation of his mission, of Ibrahim's mission, right? When you think of Ibrahim's journey, it's literally a journey. As in, he started from scratch. There are people, there are prophets that Allah chooses out of the blank. As in, they don't have any sort of history of, having miracles, having this, having that. You could tell that this guy has a specific future. With Ibrahim, it's literally a journey that he himself started. Of course, Allah is the one who, by the way, endowed him. But the Quran shows us that this started with Ibrahim bit by bit, and step by step, from a very young age of 10 or something. And that there is some sort of agency from his side. He began by questioning the stars, questioning the moon and the sun and this and that. He moves to the discussion that we had last week with his father, then the discussion that he had with his people. And then the last episode that the Quran tells us is literally the one where he encounters, when he gets to sacrifice his son. It takes a Siddiq. So Siddiq is about a journey in the first place. Ikhlas, when someone is honest and sincere, with Musa alayhi salam, think of Musa and Ibrahim. We know the journey that Ibrahim had before he became a prophet. We don't know, but at which time he became a prophet, literally. But the Quran tells us that he, from a very young age, he was very critical, very mature, right? But the Quran says almost nothing about Musa. I mean, in terms of his engagement with his people. It tells us how he was born, how he was picked up by Fir'aun, but there is nothing particular about his character. Do you get that? Only when he becomes 40 in age. وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. Unlike Ibrahim, who received this very early on. I mean, the Quran doesn't even say he received it as such, in the way Moses received it. It feels like, of course, the vast majority of Muslim scholars would say that prophethood is not something that we can earn, no matter how righteous you are. Allah chooses specific people, right? And this is the mainstream position that Muslims have. And I'm not saying otherwise. What I'm saying is, there is something unique about the comparison between Musa and Ibrahim. It feels like Moses' chosenness was more of an event. As in, Allah chose him. That's it. وَأَلْقَيْتُ عَلَيْكَ مَحَبَّةً مِّنِّي. That Musa himself was so surprised. Why did you pick me? You see this in Surah Al-Shu'ara. You see it in Surah Taha. You see it in Surah almost everywhere. Almost everywhere. One needs to ask, why was he so surprised? He does not see himself distinguished in any way. He actually says, my brother is actually more able. I can't even speak properly. But Allah says, you have something that's so unique, that is your sincerity, that is your honesty. Ikhlas. And what's even more unique, and this is, and according to Hafs reading, we say, إِنَّهُ كَانَ مُخْلَصًا. He was specially chosen. Allah chose him. Warsh would say, إِنَّهُ كَانَ مُخْلِصًا. He was honest. He was so sincere. So the key characteristic of Moses was his honesty. He was chosen because of his honesty. Right? Because of his honesty, Allah chose him. Then you move to Ismail alayhi salam, you find other. So every prophet of those would have a very distinct feature that is that got him into a relationship with Allah, a specific relationship with Allah. But again, just think about this comparison: Ibrahim and Musa. Ibrahim, it's more of a journey. With Musa, it's more of an event, as in a moment in which Allah says, "I'm picking you." We're not saying that Musa was not worthy of it or something. No, far from it. Musa is one of the major prophets, but it's different stories. Allah chooses His people in different ways, and that you know, I mean, before I forget, you know, speaking of mukhlis and mukhlas, we said as Hafs would recite mukhlasan, mukhlas with a fatha on the lam means he is chosen. Mukhlis with a kasra underneath the lam, it means he was honest. I don't know of any other language that has capacities like these. And both attributes fit Musa alayhi salam perfectly. كان مخلصا, he was a mukhlis and he was a mukhlas. He was honest and he was a chosen person. Look at this. مخلصا وكان رسول النبي وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن. Can you look at the translation? What does it say? وناديناه من جانب الطور الأيمن. What does it say?
We called to him from the right-hand side of the mountain and brought him close to us in secret.
The right-hand side. That is al-Ayman. Allah is telling us that we called to Ibrahim from through the right-hand side of Mount Sinai. The translator chose the right-hand side, which means al-Ayman, the Yameen, comes from Yameen, my right hand, my left hand. Al-Ayman could also mean the blessed one. It's a blessed mountain, isn't it? So it could also mean we called to him from the side of the blessed mountain. Yes, Imam.
Then why was it translated as right side?
Both translations are possible and understand and correct. There is nothing wrong with that. What I'm saying is the depth of the language, the richness of the language. So it can take both meanings, and even more than that. If it says from جانب الطور الأيمن, وقربناه نجيا. Najiya, what does he say with Najiya? The word Najiya. Brought him close to us. Yes, Musa was brought close to Allah, but it also means that he was saved. نجيناه من الغرق. He was saved from drowning when he was crossing the sea from Egypt into Palestine. نجا فلان من الغرق. He was saved from drowning. And both are true to Moses. Both meanings are true to Moses. This one. Both meanings are true to Moses. Both meanings are true to Moses. Yes.
It also says brought him close to us in secret. Can you speak in?
That's the secret, indeed. Al-Munaja, as in speaking secretly. Absolutely. What is this? What is this language? You know, when scholars in the 19th and 20th century, one of the key areas of study across the whole world, and more particularly in Western Europe, was the origins of languages. Origins of language. How do we speak? How do we end up saying Najin? Those words, where do they come from? Where do they come from? We have hundreds of theories on that. One of the key theories one of the earliest ones, was what is known as the ding-dong theory. And you can guess what it means. What is the ding dong? It's the sound of the bell. When you ring a bell, what happens is ding dong, right? What does that mean? So those who, one of the key guys that proposed this idea, his name is Max Muller, one of 19th century Orientalists. So he's basically trying to say that languages developed in humans by way of us imitating the sounds of things around us. Right? Which is this theory is quite seen today as a very weak one, mainly because not all the words are like that. That's number one. Number two, how would you explain grammar as well? You can't explain grammar this way. They also have, I guess, there is this, the bow wow theory. They call these in these ways just to make it easy for people to, remember those. Think of the sound of cows, مثلا, or cats. Moo. Or meow. I can see Eileen laughing, right? How much more would you laugh if I imitated? Okay. So with this theory, they actually say that we actually copy animals. Humans learned how to speak from animals. Right? Another theory would actually say, not really, that what, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's something along the lines of poo-poo theory. Which refers to our emotional reactions to things, our emotional cries to us. Like, think of if you get hit, ouch. When you see something that is disgusting to you, right? And then you start to develop a language out of this. There is those who say there is the, now I remember that. The he who theory. They actually say with this, humans did not really copy animals, did not really copy sounds of other objects around them, but they copied themselves when they first interacted with one another in a collective effort. I don't know if in traditional societies when people work together, labor work, they would sing songs. With those songs they really encourage each other to work. In Egypt we did have some of those traditional, something runs in my mind, I can't remember exactly the exact word.
Like with fishermen.
Exactly, with fishermen.
Yeah.
Yeah, حاجة زي كده?
Yeah, I don't know the song, but it's a thing with the army, for example.
نعم بالضبط نعم. But they would say things in a very rhyming way, and then again that's a very the most recent theory that is known as today is the multifaceted. Theory. Basically believing that languages, they develop out of various dimensions: cultural, social, environmental, cognitive, emotional. So it doesn't have to be like a monolith. It's various things. And that's the most accepted. The mainstream position is this one. I don't believe either of those apply to the Quran, the language of the Quran. No way. We just had some examples with Musa alayhi salam, mukhlisan, mukhlasan, ayman, najiya. Musa himself, look at this. We have Musa. Musa, I mean, we don't know whether it's an. Some linguists would say it comes from the Pharaonic times. And the word, they would say, Musa literally means the son of water, according to the, what's the hieroglyphic language. And Musa was the son of water, as in he was placed on in the sea, in that basket. In Hebrew, they say that Musa comes from the word in the Hebrew language called masha. And masha means to pull something out. To pull something out. Musa was pulled out. Right? Think of Ismail. Alaykum salam. Ismail, of course, is a Hebrew word. The Hebrew language is very, very close to Arabic, by the way. Il literally refers to Allah. Il is Ilahi. Isma. In Hebrew, they say Yashma. Right? If I say Ismail, it means like, oh Allah, hear me, listen to me. Ismail. And you have Idris. Idris alayhi salam. Idris was a man of knowledge and a man who probably was the first philosopher in the whole world. The Prophet ﷺ says, أول من خط بالقلم. Idris, the first one to use, could be to write, could mean to write, but could also mean to design things, as in think of geometry. Right? Actually, there is a theory that says he was the teacher of those who end up building the pyramids and that sort of architecture goes back to his school. You see the name itself, Osiris and Isis, that language, the way of naming people. Idris is very close to that. Right? So the name, what I'm trying to say, obviously, is the names of those people. They actually refer to those people. They refer to the personality. They refer to the qualities. So Idris comes from Darasa. And darasa is a very particular word in Arabic. Like if I say, it's not like when in English we say darasa, normally we translate it today as to study. فتقول أنا درست بجامعة كذا. I studied at this university. In Arabic, darasa is a lot more deeper than that. A better English expression, they would say, I read philosophy at this university. I can. To say the word darasa means, okay, darasa that means you've literally. Darasa has that sense of you've unpacked something, you've played with it, so to speak, that you're good to understand its ins and outs. Darasa. With Idris alayhi salam, for his name to be, he was the man who was an embodiment of this, an embodiment of dirasa. And when I say darasa as well, it does not mean I read something. It does not mean just I read something. It means I engaged with it. I engaged with it. Let me clarify that a little bit. In Arabic, that verb is very, very deep. But it's been taken today as translated just as to study, and that I think it's a lot more deeper than that. Okay, there are different ways of learning. There are people who would learn by reading, which is literally probably the lowest level. As in, if I read something, if you talk to me about it 1 week later, I would barely be able to remember that, because mere reading is not enough. You have people who would learn by listening. which is a deeper level than mere reading. You have people who would learn through visualizing, as in seeing a video maybe or something. Think of this. You read a book. How much would you remember after 1 month? If you listen to an audiobook, how much would you remember? I'm quoting someone, by the way. That I can't remember the exact name of the author. He basically says to read. When you read, after a period of time, what you can remember is just 10% of what you've read. But if you've listened to the same subject, you will be able to remember almost 20% of it. But if you've seen it, if you've seen a video of it, you'll be able to remember 30% of it. That is called passive learning, where you just are a recipient of what you're reading, what you're learning. But there is active learning. Think of discussing what you've read. That's much more deeper than me reading. He says, what's his name? I get it. He says you would remember 50% of what you discussed. Right? But he said actually if you try to exercise or put into practice what you've learned, you would remember 70% of it. And then he says the highest level, where your capacity of retention, trying to remember what you've learned, is literally when you teach it. You will be able to remember 90%. Teach it, it could be as a teacher or as to give a presentation or PowerPoint, whatever you may think of. SubhanAllah, when I was a kid, our teachers would always say, if you want to master something, teach it. William Glasser, right? William Glasser, am I right? Huh? Edgar. What is his? Okay, no, maybe it's someone else. Either way, dirasa literally means those in Arabic, that active learning. So you see, darastu shay'an means I practiced it, I discussed it, I taught it. Dirasa means that. It does not just mean reading or listening, or that's passive learning. Dirasa carries the meaning of active learning. Yes, laughing. Why are you laughing?
Learning here.
Really? Okay, alhamdulillah. So the one verb carries all those meanings. Darasa. That's why the Meccans, when they wanted to rebuke the Prophet ﷺ and question his capacity, they would say, وَكَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ وَلِيَقُولُ دَرَسْتَ. We actually diversified the stories that we give you in the Quran, and we know they will end up saying, you've actually been doing this for years. This is not the work of somebody who receives revelation. You must have been studying this for years. That is, that the Quran is so profound that it can't be the work of just a dream that you see or receiving the revelation. So the wisdom behind is the verb darasta. Idris. You have Idris, someone who literally turns his knowledge into action. He was a writer, a man of geometrics. We are told as well that he was علم الناس الحياكة, as in how to, what's the word? Knitting things, right? I'm led to believe he's behind the Egyptian pharaonic architecture, I can't see why not. So, going back to the names, how would I apply the theories that I just mentioned earlier on? The ones that, because of whom Lean was laughing. What is it? I can't forget it.
Origins.
Yeah, the origins of languages. The ba, wow, and this and that. Actually, forgot there's another one that is called la la. No, you can't apply this to the Quran. And it's a lot more decent than that. There is a deep discussion amongst Arab grammarians whether languages are human-made or divine-made. I think, yes, maybe I can apply this to non-Arabic languages. I'm not being biased. I'm just, I think we can clearly see that. How could you, I mean, this is not the work of humans as such. I believe there's something divine about it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been really analyzing every single letter changes the meaning in a meaningful way. What is this? And I mentioned before that one of the key Orientalists of the 19th century, again, famously said, the Arabic language is the most artificial language on earth. Artificial in the sense that it feels there is something behind it. Like someone has put this word in this way and that word that way, the vocalization here, the vocalization there, changing the meaning with one letter changes the whole meaning of the word. Who's behind that? This cannot be the result of just a couple of people imitating a bird or imitating an animal. It's a little more deeper than that. Yes, Nadia.
I think like in a previous answer, you mentioned, I'm not sure of the exact passage, but that Allah has sent the names to Adam. So, and I, like in my memory, that was like a kind of like a justification of language to read. And I just like want some clarification on that, and like whether like if Allah has sent like the language or like words or names.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't have access to this domain. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Adam spoke Arabic. And it's just when you come to analyze the Arabic language, you're quoting the right stuff. Like Adam alayhi salam being taught al-asma. What do those asma mean? Could it be the meaning, the names of things, the names of birds, the names of animals in Arabic? Could be. Some scholars would say actually what Adam was taught was the capacity to name things. He was given the capacity to name things. Did he name them in Arabic? Could be, Allahu Alam. I'm not, of course, I'm not making fun of those. I don't take those theories lightly. I mean, the ones that I mentioned earlier. What I'm saying is they can be applied to human-made languages. And we do have human-made languages, definitely. But I think Arabic, and I probably can apply the same to Hebrew up to a certain degree. But you see that, okay, look at this. I kind of believe that part of Allah's preservation of the Quran lies in Allah's preservation of the Arabic language. As in, it was somehow preserved from human interventions. Maybe up to a certain generation, because we've started to develop dialects and accents and this and that. What I'm trying to highlight, though, is just the fact that this is a very unique language. And I'm not saying this because I'm an Arab or something. I think we could all see that this is a very unique structure and the depth and breadth of the language. Subhanallah. Other thoughts? Yes, yeah.
Something was striking is today in the morning we were just speaking about it was whenever you want to tell someone to get interested in your discussions, tell them a story. And for example, you were advising us to when we was to do this form of stories. And Surah Maryam, when he's talking to the Prophet ﷺ, if he's in a difficult time, he's giving him all the stories of before just to make him feel better. And he's not telling them like, for example, kun mukhlasan, kun sadiqan,
Absolutely.
be that.
Absolutely.
But he's telling them, see, all of these prophets before you
Well done, ya Ahmed.
experienced all these.
Well done.
And because of their experience, I've given them
Absolutely.
characteristics.
Absolutely. The power of storytelling, it's a very powerful skill to have. Definitely. Other thoughts? As you said, you've had questions.
No, you've already answered
Oh.
to most of my thoughts. It's just one question that comes to mind is why specifically this group of messengers? I mean, there's so many messengers. And I'm just trying to figure out why specifically أولئك الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين. Yet, can't help thinking of,
I do see what you mean. Yeah. Why does the Quran single out Ibrahim, Zakaria, Maryam, Musa, Ismail? I think the unifying thread amongst these figures is primarily the idea of ibtila. They have been through a lot, especially those prophets, Zakaria, Maryam, Isa, alayhi salam, Ibrahim, Musa, Ishaq and Yaqub are mentioned briefly. Ismail had a deeper ibtila, wallahu alam. Idris, definitely. We don't know much about Idris, alayhi salam, very mysterious figure. But the good question could be Ayyub alayhi salam as well had a difficult test. Why wasn't he mentioned? Yunus alayhi salam, indeed. I could be. I mean, when someone is in a difficult situation, is feeling down or something, mentioning the story of one or two people does not mean that other prophets are not really relevant. It means that these, remember those, and you will naturally remember others. But the idea of just to remember that these, you're not alone. And then the Quran emphasizes this by saying that there's just one group, there are others. The last verse that we've recited. أولئك الذين أنعم الله من النبيين من ذرية آدم وممن حملنا معهم. That means there are other prophets that haven't been mentioned that are relevant as well. But the key idea is this for you to remember those figures. And as if the Quran is telling the Prophet ﷺ that we've picked some examples to you from the time of Nuh, that is Idris. Because Idris was in between, by the way, Idris was in between Nuh, between Adam and Nuh, time-wise. Between Nuh, and then you have what does the verse say? Adam, ممن حملنا مع نوح. Ibrahim alayhi salam comes through Sam ibn Nuh. Right? So we have an example that is from Adam's time to Nuh's time, that is Idris. Idris came right after Shis, Ibn Adam alayhi salam, min dhurriyyati Adam, sorry. And from after the time of Nuh alayhi salam, we have the example of Ibrahim. And with Ibrahim, we have, through him comes Musa alayhi salam, comes Ishaq, comes Yaqub, comes Zakaria, and Ismail. who is the immediate relation to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as if Allah is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this has been done across the board since the beginning of time, from Adam's time up to this very moment. So as if the Quran is, pick and choosing one of each period. Yeah. Allahu Akbar.
إسماعيل إنه كان صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا. So some of them are رسولا نبيا and some of them are just نبيا.
Nah.
So did Ismail receive a message?
Yeah, definitely.
So there are other messages than Quran or Torah.
Oh yeah, sure. The Quran clearly says in Surah Ghafir, منهم من قصصنا عليك ومنهم من لم نقصص عليك. There are prophets or messengers that we have told you about, and there are others that we haven't told you about. We've just given you a bit of those revelations. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, no problem. Yes, Yusuf. Very, very briefly, please. Yeah. It goes both ways. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not choose people randomly. He chooses people because they have something. But He is the one who made them as well. Like it's like that argument, the chicken that comes first or the egg. So it's but it's a worthwhile conversation. Maybe we'll begin with it next week. Why not? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني بالصلاة